fellow time travelers Number 47 is coming to you from a new studio. We had our old place cleaned out, and now we're in a brand new location. So this episode might sound a little different as we get used to our new space. Anyway, let's get started. The United States is a country in North America. The name says United States. That means it is made up of states that are united or joined together. Right now there are 50 states. It's hard to believe, but the United States wasn't always the United States. It was once a group of 13 separate colonies which declared independence from the British Empire in 1776 and won their freedom with help from France. The United States was officially born on July 4th, 1776, when the 13 colonies adopted the Declaration of Independence written by Thomas Jefferson. But did you know that long before Europeans arrived, the land we call the United States was already inhabited by hundreds of thousands of people, belonging to many different cultures? Today we call them Native Americans or American Indians. We don't really know exactly when they arrived because they didn't write things down the way we do. But archaeologists think that maybe they came over a land bridge that connected Siberia to North America 15,000 years ago. Others say they may have sailed across the Pacific Ocean in boats. We also know that at one point, more than 100 million Native Americans lived here. There were hundreds of different tribes speaking dozens of different languages. Some lived in small villages, while others lived in large cities like Cahokia, which was bigger than London during the Middle Ages. They developed advanced technologies like irrigation systems, roads, bridges, and even skyscrapers 1,000 years before Europeans built the first skyscrapers. They had everything they needed to thrive. The climate was mild and the land was rich and fertile. And for thousands of years, the Native Americans prospered. Then around 1000 AD, something strange began to happen. The climate grew colder and drier. Plants and animals began to disappear. And after 1200, most of the great cities were abandoned and the Native Americans were forced to move further west to find new homes. And that brings us to the time when Europeans first arrived. In the early 1600s, European explorers began sailing to North America. The first European to explore the area that is now the United States was an Italian explorer named Amerigo Vespucci. He explored the eastern coast in 1497 and 1498. And although he never actually landed in what is now the United States is named after him because at the time the eastern United States looked very different than it does today. It was mostly covered in trees. There were no big cities, and hardly anyone lived in the interior of the continent. After Vespucci came Spanish conquistadors searching for gold and other riches. They fought many battles with the Native Americans and often enslaved them. In 1513, the conquistadors found the great city of Tenochtitlan in the heart of Mexico. But the Aztec emperor saw them as a threat and went to war with them. After an 8-year siege, the Spanish finally captured the city in 1521 and destroyed it. During the 1600s, European countries began competing for control of North America. The French, Dutch, and English established colonies in the New World. At first, life was hard for the European settlers. They had to learn how to survive in a new environment and often had to rely on the Native Americans for help. But as time went on, the colonies grew and became more prosperous. In 1607, the first English colony was established in Jamestown, Virginia. The colony was named after King James, the first of England. The first settlers were mostly men who were looking for gold and other riches. But they soon realized that there wasn't much gold to be found. Instead, they began growing tobacco, which was a cash crop that could be sold for profit. The colony struggled for the first few years, but eventually it became one of the most important colonies in North America. Another important colony was Massachusetts Bay. It was founded in 1630 by a group of Puritans who were looking for religious freedom. The Puritans were a group of Protestants who wanted to reform the Church of England. They believed that the church was too corrupt and that its leaders were not true Christians. So they decided to leave England and start their own colony in North America. The a colony became a center of Puritanism, and many other colonies were founded by Puritans over the next few decades. By the 1700s, the colonies had grown significantly. They were producing a variety of goods, including lumber, fish, tobacco, cotton, and rice. They also had a growing population of enslaved Africans who were brought to the colonies to work on plantations. The colonies were becoming increasingly wealthy and powerful, but this was causing tension with their parent country, Great Britain. Great Britain had been ruling the colonies with a policy of salutary neglect. This meant that they did not interfere with the colonies, as long as they were making money for the empire. But in the 1760s, the British government began to change its policy towards the colonies. They began imposing new taxes and regulations, which caused the colonists to become angry and resentful. The colonists felt that they were being treated unfairly, and that they were not being given the same rights as the people in Great Britain. They began protesting the British government and policies, and this led to a series of events that ultimately resulted in the American Revolution. In 1775, the Revolutionary War began. The colonists fought against the British Army, and with the help of France, they won the war, and the United States was born. George Washington was a commander of the Continental Army, and he led the colonists to victory. The United States became a republic with a constitution that established a government based on the rule of law and the protection of individual rights. The new nation faced many challenges in the years that followed. Slavery continued to be a controversial issue, and the country was divided over the expansion of slavery into new territories. The United States also went to war with Great Britain again in 1812. But despite these challenges, the United States grew and prospered during the 1800s. In 1861, the country was again divided. This time it was over the issue of slavery. The southern states wanted to keep slavery legal, while the northern states wanted to abolish it. This conflict culminated in the American Civil War, which lasted from 1861 to 1865. The Union, led by President Abraham Lincoln, ultimately won the war, and slavery was abolished. In the early 1900s, the United States became a world power. It played a major role in both World War I and World War II. After World War II, the United States emerged as a superpower, and it has remained that way ever since. Today, the United States is one of the most powerful countries in the world. It is a global leader in terms of economy, military, and culture. It also faces new challenges, including terrorism, climate change, and economic inequality. But the country's leaders continue to work to address these issues and to make the United States a better place for all of its citizens. And that's all we have time for today. See you next time. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time.